Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. And as always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Looking at the view, looking at the side, everything looks good. Hope everybody is having a wonderful Thursday, whether you're here in the Tampa Bay area or abroad. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Wow, what a show we have for you today. At 12:15, we have David Zimroth, the coach. Assistant coach at Georgia, assistant coach at Florida State, assistant coach right here at USF. He is going to preview Bulls and Tigers. USF takes on Memphis tonight. Top 25 team. That should be a good one at the Ingling Center. It's going to be on national TV at 9 p.m. tonight. So if you want those tickets, go to gousfbulls.com for that one. Later on, 12:40. Joining us today, we have Spencer Nunez, the head coach of the Jefferson baseball team. He joins us on the program. And then at 1 o'clock, we have Sofia Chepenik, one of the standout players for the USF Lacrosse team. She is incredible. If you haven't been to a game yet, there's only been one. But get on out there. Again, go to USFBulls.com to get those tickets. Eddie Encina joins us at 1:30 for his weekly hit to talk about all things hockey. We're talking Four Nations. We're talking Tampa Bay Lightning, the strong week that they had last week. Incredible. Like and subscribe. Every like and subscription certainly does help. I hope you guys know that. Shout out to my guy, Dolan. You were number one. Thought you weren't one. You were two. David Terry Jaybird, that was one hell of a game last night. Old man Crosby looked like the best player. He certainly did. And if you have money to put down on the Four Nations tournament, I would put money on Sidney Crosby winning the MVP. I think last night the odds were plus 1,500. 3 assists in the win for Team Canada, 4-3 in overtime over Team Sweden. Listen, they scored a power play goal within the first minute, which was nuts. McDavid to Crosby to McKinnon, and you were just like, oh my God, could it? It's wild, unbelievable. Wow. And then they end up scoring another one, Braden Point to Brad Marchand. You're like, okay, Sweden's probably got to get run out of the building here, but they find their way back. They battle, they come all the way, and they tie the game, and they go to overtime. I think each team gets a point. Canada gets a second point because they won in overtime. You get 3 points for winning in regulation, so that is really going to be kind of the stressor for this tournament. And keep an eye out on some of these rules, because don't think that the NHL is not looking at these rules wondering if they should apply them to the regular season. I know 2 of them in particular. One, the 10-minute overtime. I love the 10-minute overtime. Nathan McKinnon's like, oh, it was too much. I was dead tired. Yeah, because you go end to end every single time with the puck. And it happened 3 or 4 times. And Gustafson didn't let in any goals. So, yeah, you were pretty tired. But if you hit the back of the net, you wouldn't have been so tired. So I have no sympathy for one of the best players in the world being tired. Not a problem at all, but it was a lot of fun. I think 10 minutes, 3-on-3 before the shootout is certainly a way that the NHL has to go. And then also with the point structure, what we're seeing in this tournament with 3 points for a regulation win and then 2 points for an overtime win, I think that's the way the NHL is going to go. Soccer, you get 3 points for a win. I think hockey is going to follow that as well. Lady Evil says, can't wait for tonight's game. Who do you have? I'm going to get into that momentarily. Just looking at some of the other big news around the Bay. I am really happy to see a guy throw like Shane McClanahan. And when you're looking at the Rays, looking at the options down there, and Kevin Cash said it himself, Shane McClanahan's a pretty easy highlight on the first day of Rays training camp. I am so excited to see what this starting rotation is going to be able to do for the Tampa Bay Rays. And we saw the big news last night. Alex Bregman signs a deal with the Boston Red Sox. So if you were paying attention on the program yesterday and you heard what Neil Solondz had to say, Alex Bregman kind of tips the balance in the AL East. How does the defense shake out? Does he stay at third? Do you move Devers to first? What does that mean for Tristan Casas? Does Bregman move to second base, right? It's that whole thing, how that's going to shake out is going to go a long way. Listen, this is a guy that rakes at Fenway Park. Just go look at his numbers from his tenure with the Houston Astros. Dude's incredible. I mean, he's a champion. He's a grinder. And no surprise he didn't go to the Yankees. But he's just another guy that Yankee fans are going to love hating on. But yeah, with him coming into the division, that you have to kind of reassess what Boston is going to do and how they're going to look going forward. And how because just because you get a good player doesn't mean that it's going to be a great fit. We'll see what happens with Boston, because we've seen the last decade or so, they have just as much of a chance to finish in first as they do finishing in last. Some incredible games last night. USF softball swept Florida Gulf Coast, which was great. Did you see any of the USF women's softball game last night? Insane. Or USF women's basketball game. 3 overtime. Sammy Puisis hits a 3-pointer at the end of regulation to send the game to overtime. Rice ended up missing in overtime. It was either overtime or double overtime. One of the best field goal percentage shooters in the conference, misses a layup, just rolled outside the rim, going to another overtime. And USF, Jose Fernandez and the ladies, they found a way to win. They can't afford to slip up against some of these teams that are lower in the pecking order, because you have that win against Duke earlier on in the year, back in December. At the time, I think they were the 9th ranked team in the country. So you hear it every single year when it comes to March Madness. You hear great wins, you hear bad losses, and you want to limit as many bad losses as possible, because if you don't win the conference tournament, you still want to have a chance to win an at-large bid. So a big win, a big comeback, way to show resilience if you are the USF women's basketball team. The men try to duplicate that tonight as they host Memphis, Penny Hardaway, and the Tigers. Go USFBulls.com. Go get your tickets. I know baseball's starting tomorrow, so a lot of great stuff going on at USF. Jacob Hardy, great content, Jake. Glad to see you continuing with the Tampa sports content, following Zach with the Zone Heads podcast as well. Keep it up and God bless. Yes, go check out the Zone Heads podcast. They were recorded every Monday. My guy, Zach Blobner and Brandon Kravitz out there in Orlando. Those guys do a really, really good job. So definitely keep an eye out for them. I'm going to look up now. We did this yesterday for Team USA. Looking at the line combinations, and this is from yesterday from Tom Galiti from NHL.com. Looking at the lines for tonight's game. U.S., Finland. Jack Eichel going to center that first line. No surprise there. Kyle Connor on the left from the Winnipeg Jets. Matthew Tkachuk on the right. I think this is one of those tournaments where Matthew Tkachuk was built for. Austin Matthews, second line center with Jack Hughes on the right, Jake Gentz on the left. That is high flying. That's hard working. JT Miller centers the third line, the old but new New York Ranger. Brady Tkachuk to his left, Matt Boldy to his right. That's a little bit of a switch. Those guys switched sides of the ice. Vinny Trocheck playing between Brock Nelson and Dylan Larkin. Defense, no surprise there, but it looks like Zach Werenski and Charlie McAvoy bumped up to the first pair. Jacob Slavin and Adam Fox down, and then Noah Hannafin and Brock Faber. And then the goalie we know is going to be Connor Hellebuck and Jake Ottinger. I think the advantage clearly goes to Team USA, but Finland's got some good players too, and that's led by their first-line center, captain of the Florida Panthers, defending Stanley Cup champion, Alexander Sasha Barkov. Mikko Rantanen on the right, Stanley Cup champion in his own right with the Colorado Avalanche, now with the Carolina Hurricanes on the right, Arturi Lehkonen on the left, Sebastian Aho, another Carolina Hurricanes player. He's in the middle of Patrick Laine on the right, Rupe Hintz of the Dallas Stars on the left. A couple of Panthers on line 3 with Anton Lundell and Eetu Luosterainen playing with Mikael Granlund, and then Eric Halla, the veteran, playing with Joel Armia on the right and Teuvo Teravainen on the left. Defensively, that's where you have to keep an eye out for, because this is probably the weakest position group in the entire tournament. Nico Mikkola and Esa Lindell, a couple of lefties there, line pairing number 1. Then you have Urho Vakanainen, I should know how to say this, and Nicolas Matanpalo, and then Oli Mata and Henry Jokiharju. So, all right, you have UC Saros between goal, Kevin Lankin and backing him up, but the defensive issues of Finland is something that they have to be wary about. One thing that we've noticed watching this tournament, even though it's only been one game, is there's going to be ebbs and flows. The first game last night in that first period, Canada was absolutely flying. And if it wasn't for some big saves from Gustafsson, it might have been 3 or 4 to nothing, but it was 2-0. They weathered the storm, and Sweden played much better in periods 2 and 3. I think going into to overtime, it was either 19 shots for Canada or in the low 20s. Like, they did a good job of keeping them to the outside, and Sidney Crosby just came up big. 3-on-3. Binnington made some big saves, and Mika Zibanejad had a chance to end it as well. Just a really incredible game. Thaw says, will Patrick Laine show up? Listen, the one thing about this is that it doesn't really matter what's going on in the regular season, because if you're just good for like 4 games, that's all that matters. And Patrick Laine has been up and down with Montreal. They don't love the work ethic. They don't love the consistency, but there's just something different about playing for your country. And we've seen it with, I thought Mika Zibanejad played pretty well last night. Victor Hedman plays well all the time, but just it's something different. Putting your country on your chest, maybe you kind of snap out of it. I think Ranger fans are hoping that that's what happens to Mika Zibanejad. Canucks fans probably hope the same thing with Elias Pettersson. David Terry, Connor in goal. Yes, when you have Connor Hellebuck, who's been clearly the best goalie in the National Hockey League this year between the pipes, even though he's had his struggles in the playoffs, that gives me a lot of hope and a lot of confidence going forward with the red, white, and blue tonight. And if you can see, I'm rocking my Team USA, my Captain America soccer jersey. It's Tyler Adams, the captain of the U.S. men's national team. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that I'm supporting my guys as well. I'll actually be at the game tonight, USF in Memphis. So hopefully if you're there, you can come and say hello. Jacob Hardy, curious about why Russia isn't involved with the tourney. I figured it was a political thing, but feel like we are missing out on some great players being involved. That's a great question. And I remember in the All-Star Game Media Day last year in Toronto, the guys that weren't involved with the 4 nations. And we're talking about Czechia's David Pastrnak and Germany's Leon Draisaitl and a couple of the Russian players. Like, they were just not, like, they didn't really care. They were not happy that they weren't involved in this. And you want to try to get as many countries involved as possible, but to be completely transparent and honest, what was going on politically and what's going on with the Russia and Ukraine thing, whether you think it's a big deal or not, that it has something to do with it. It really does. Because as much as we want to look at it and just say, well, what about Kucherov? What's the big deal? He plays in the States. What about Ovechkin? What about these guys? It's deeper than that. It's deeper than that, because you're going to get, and as we've seen, whenever there's a Russian team involved in international competition, players from the KHL involved as well, the Continental Hockey League, and also their support staff, the coaches, everybody over there, like, having them travel during a time like this and having them involved in international competition, where you have to be wary that that is a safety issue. That is a security threat. Now, you may think it's not a big deal, but it's not about that. It's not about whether you think it's a big deal or not. It's about the potential catastrophe that you could be faced with. And it's not just involving them. Let's say Russia's playing Canada, right? And somebody wants to do something squirrely, right? That would be, come on. So that's a good question, though. I know, and I know there's people, and our guy Phil Esposito amongst them, saying it's hard to have an international competition when you don't have Russia and the Czechs involved. I get that. But when there is these situations that we have right now around the world, it's tough to include a country like Russia, even though it sucks not having Nikita Kucherov in it. But I got to be honest with you. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for the Tampa Bay Lightning, because you have your best player and your goaltender taking a couple of weeks off and getting some well-needed rest. Listen, you need these guys down the stretch. And I know I'm not the only guy that last night, when Victor Hedman got that puck on the power play and wound up to take a 96-mile-an-hour slap shot and saw Anthony Cirelli getting down to block it, I know I wasn't the only one holding my breath. Because what you don't want to see is what happened with the Las Vegas Golden Knights defenseman Shea Theodore last night, where it looks like he messed up a shoulder, broke an arm, broke a wrist, something. But you could tell he was clearly damaged on a contact play there along the boards and never came back. And then John Cooper announces in the game last night that he will not return. He's done. And then you saw the Golden Knights Twitter account today saying that he's going to be, week to week with an upper body injury. And that's your biggest concern, your biggest fear, if you're one of these people running these teams, these franchises in the National Hockey League. You get it. You understand these guys want to go out there and support their country. But at the end of the day, you're paying these guys millions of dollars to try to win a championship. And if in this exhibition tournament they get hurt and it affects your chance to play for a Stanley Cup, I mean, that's the concerns and the reservations that these teams have. And, I can't fault them. All right, let's talk some hoops. We'll do it with man, legend, Coach David Zimroth. What's going on, Z? How are you, buddy?
Jay, good to see you again. It was a pleasure seeing you on Tuesday at Tampa Catholic as well.
Yeah, you and I, man, we could talk basketball till the cows come home, brother. It's basketball. Me and my dad, it's just our favorite sport, watching together, and we're diehard Knicks fans. My dad telling me about the teams in the early '70s, and that's the one team, man. I want to see them win so freaking bad. But man, college hoops has been so exciting this year. And let's start right off with the USF Memphis game tonight. It's a 9:00 affair. You know, Bulls basketball, being involved with the program. And listen, this is one of those games, 9:00 national TV game. They have success last year going into Memphis, winning that game. How do you see this game shaking out tonight?
Well, what's interesting is the way USF played against Memphis last year basically turned both seasons around. It turned USF's season around big time to where they had probably the greatest season in the history of the basketball program. And then with Memphis, it threw them into a tailspin. I mean, they couldn't get it right. They went from being a top 10, top 15 team to dropping out of the rankings. They really struggled the rest of the year. So I wouldn't put it past the Bulls to do the same thing tonight. Everybody's thinking this is just a cakewalk for Memphis. I don't look at it like that. Like you said, national TV audience. This game's going to come down to what I think are two or three things. One, can USF control the backcourt of the perimeter game of Memphis? They've got the third leading scorer in the country in Haggerty. Okay, he averages 21 a game. But more importantly, he gets to the line 8 or 9 times a game. So a third of his points will come from the foul line. So you can't foul him. All right, you got to contain him. And when he doesn't have the ball, don't let him get the ball if possible. The other two guards are Hunter and Roger. So between those three perimeter guys, they're averaging 45-plus points a game. You got to contain their perimeter. And I think if USF can do that, along with Reed and Reynolds having great games, I think USF's got a chance to pull off the win. And I don't consider it an upset. I mean, if you look at USF at home, they play really well. Reynolds played out of his mind, probably his career game against Temple the other night. Reed, in my opinion, was the catalyst behind the entire turnaround last year for USF. Against FSU, he played out of his mind, defended full court. So I think if they can stay out of foul trouble, contain the perimeter game, get away even on the boards, I think something special can happen tonight.
So you said something really interesting to me, because you've seen this USF program from way down to way up, just kind of the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys. And you said something to me that really struck a chord. You thought last year with Amir Abdur-Rahim was one of the most important and impactful seasons, regardless of the sport, in school history, correct?
Correct.
Just because, and why? Because you've been on campus, so you know about the school program. You've been around. You've had conversations with the guys like Leroy.
Let me tell you what a lot of former coaches and players do. Not because they're not happy. It's a natural thing. You don't think anybody's going to do a better job than you did. You don't think anybody's going to play better than you played. I've been associated with USF basketball since probably the mid-'70s, okay? In terms of knowing about the program, players that went there in the middle '70s. And so I watched the growth of that school and their program. I was an assistant coach for 7 years. I have no problem admitting that our 7 years, we didn't get done what we should have gotten done. Mm-hmm. So when I say this stuff, it's not to put down anybody else but what this man did last year, what Amir Abdur-Rahim did last year with his staff, with his team, is I've never seen it happen in any sport at the school in 1 year. In 1 year. In year one. So I don't think giving credit to him in that regard, God rest his soul, is wrong. I mean, it was amazing. He galvanized an entire community. Nobody was really talking about USF basketball. Okay? It's not like it's on the tip of people's tongue. And that's just the truth. He made it a topic of conversation last year. What they did, how they played, with how they handled themselves, just everything about the program. It was amazing. So in my opinion, it's the best job what he did last year. I don't think anybody could say it wasn't the best first year job in the history of the athletic department. And I give Mike Kelly a lot of credit for the hire, because he took a guy from a low Division I league that turned around a bad program. Let's face it, bad program. And he took all of what he did there, brought it to Tampa, and he made it work. And he made it work so fast. It was crazy. And here's another thing I loved about what he did last year. You know, a lot of coaches in different sports have issues with media, supporters, whatever. The guy didn't have an issue with anybody about anything. Matter of fact, he lost his 3 best players to the portal that all could have come back this year. Okay? That could have basically had another great year. But he understood they couldn't pay those 3 kids the money that they were going to make at other schools. What did he do? Said great things about them in the media, probably met with them in private, said, take it and go. You deserve it. Might be the only time you ever make this kind of money. So that's what I really appreciated about him from an outsider looking in, okay? USF's had really good seasons with other coaches, and they've had other good players. But what happened last year, from my opinion, has never happened before.
An assistant at USF, also an assistant at Georgia and Florida State. We heard the news a couple of weeks ago, the Leonard Hamilton stepping down at the end of the season. What do you make of that news, Z? And I know it's kind of tough to see who else would come in there, but do you think they go big game hunting when they try to replace him there, or is it somebody from within? What do you think?
Well, the crazy part of this, I still have some connections. I've been out of business now since the end of the 2003 season. When I say out of business, out of college coaching business. But I've kept my network intact of people that I trust and deal with. I've heard from very reliable sources there could be 50 to 60 jobs open this year. Wow. Now, I want you to think of that. 50 to 60 Division I jobs. Okay. That being said, the 3 jobs that I feel are probably the most important jobs, the biggest jobs open right now. You got Virginia's open. Tony Bennett resigned before the beginning of the year. Florida State's open. Leonard Hamilton announced his retirement. Jim Larinaga announced his retirement a few months back from Miami. And you got Mike Woodson, who announced his retirement. Okay? So it's not so much who can you get, is which of these jobs is better than the other. Right. What's going to happen in terms of the dominoes once one guy takes one of those jobs. And then lastly, here's the most important thing now when considering a job. You have NIL packages. If you don't have competitive NIL packages, you could be the greatest tactician in the history of basketball. You're not winning. You're not winning. And I'm not saying the team's the highest payroll win. What I'm saying is you're going to lose kids that might have helped you earlier in your career. So, I've been talking, I said this to you the other day. You got a kid at a low Division I school who averages 15, 20 a game as a freshman and a sophomore. He's gone. He's gone because that school can't pay him. So he can go to another school and make a couple of $100,000, maybe more. But getting back to Florida State, I've heard that some former players have major interest in terms of Sam Cassell and Luke Laux. You've got people, talking about Will Wade at McNeese State. It'll be interesting to see what happens. What I tell NBA guys that I know, that I coach, is very simple. The life you've led. So take Mike Woodson, for example. Mike Woodson's been in the NBA since his rookie season. Got to be 30 plus years, maybe more. He had no concept of what the college, environment was like, other than when he played. Sam Cassell, same thing. He's been in the NBA 30 years. From the practices, the preparation, there's no recruiting. You coach who the team buys or pays or whatever. Your roster can change. Your lifestyle changes from having free time to literally having no free time. Okay? So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Who can they get? What kind of competitive NIL? And, going forward, if Sam wants that job, I hope he gets it offered to him because that's my guy. Okay, yeah. I coached him, I recruited him. I think it'd be an amazing story. But again, if you look at the guys that were college coaches that went to the pros and the jobs they did and the success they had, for every Brad Stevens who left Butler went to Boston, for every Billy Donovan that went from Florida to the pro. Billy Donovan's been a pro coach now for, 10 plus 13 years, whatever it is. You've got Fred Hoiberg, who wasn't successful. Tim Floyd wasn't successful. John Beeline, not successful. Mike Woodson, not successful in terms of the success that the athletic directors and the administration want.
Yeah, it's hard to go from that one level to the next because it really is. It's a completely different game.
Different world.
It's almost like the only similarity is you got to put the ball in the hoop. That's it.
And now they're saying, well, it's like the pros with the money and this and that. You're still having to do things on a daily basis as a college basketball coach that you do not have to do as an NBA coach. Even Rick Pitino said something very interesting about a week ago. They had a big win, they beat someone that they were supposed to beat. Might have been Seton Hall. And he goes, everyone's raving about how good my team is and how poor the other team is maybe. He goes, let me make sure you understand. That team that we just beat is coached very well. The difference is we have NIL monies. They don't have it at that level. So we have better players than them. When you have better players, you're winning. It's very rare the team with the best players lose. Very, very rare. Okay? So if he could say it and be that, in depth and blunt about it, it's just the truth.
Yeah, that's one of the best coaches that we've seen. And, St. John's fell to Villanova, but I'm very glad that they're back, amongst the prominent teams there in college basketball, ranked in the top 25. And Z, if you look at the top 25, man, it is littered with teams from the SEC. And now it seems like there's 500 freaking teams in the conference. It's still weird to see Texas and Oklahoma in there. There'll always be Big 12 teams to me. But what do you make of the conference? I know we have the big showdown coming up with Auburn and Alabama. I mean,
right.
What do you see when you look at kind of the hierarchy there and, kind of the key to their success?
I don't watch a lot of analysts talking about basketball. I form my own opinions. I've been around the game since I'm a kid. I feel like I got a pretty good track record of success, knowing what I'm talking about. When you look at the SEC, any person in the business or out of the business that doesn't think it's going to be harder to win the Southeast Conference tournament than win the NCAA tournament is out of their minds. I mean, it's ridiculous at the bottom of the SEC, the bottom of the league, the worst team in the league, the worst record is South Carolina. Basically, every game they play is a 2-point game. They haven't won a game, okay? Arkansas was a preseason top 15 team. They're at the bottom of the league, okay? You've got Texas, Georgia. You've got teams with very good basketball coaches and programs that are at the bottom of that league. So when you look at that top to bottom, to me, it's the most competitive league in the country by far, maybe in the history of the Southeast Conference. But when I coached in the Southeast Conference, there was 12 teams. You got 18 teams now. It's a different world, different world. But you got 9 teams that are ranked, I think, in the SEC. Vandy's the only one not ranked. They're going to go to the tournament. You got 10 definite teams going to the tournament. And that doesn't count maybe a couple others that might have a good Southeast conference tournament or win some games here at the end and get, an at-large bid. And
you told me the other night, you said, Jay, look at these 3 games. These are 3 teams going on the road, playing against lower seeds. And the one of those 3 games was Tennessee going into Kentucky. And you said to me, you think Kentucky's really going to lose another home game? And they beat the 5th best team in the country in Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee's like one of the great examples because when you look at them, they're 20-5 and they're 7th in the SEC. They're 20-5, Z, right. And they're 7-5 in the SEC. Like, that is insane.
Well, what's crazy is when we were talking, Kentucky's had home games where they've given up over 100 twice and over 90, I believe, twice. And all of a sudden now, they played the best defense they've played all year. I mean, they gave up 64 points the other night. So you wonder what took place. Is Tennessee that bad offensively, or was Kentucky off the charts defensively? So they can duplicate that performance on the defensive end. They're going to be a tough team to deal with here at the end. Tennessee's still one of the best teams in the country. I don't consider them a great scoring team, but I'm going to tell you who I'm very, very impressed with, and I cannot believe the improvement of some of the kids. The guy up in Florida has done a heck of a job.
Yeah.
Todd Golden has done a heck of a job. And then, look, I'm a Seminole graduate. I'm a Seminole coach. I'm out of the business in terms of that stuff. You do a good job, you do a good job. I mean, I remember coaching in South Florida, and Billy Donovan, we all got the job the same year. I'm saying what this guy is doing is unheard of, okay? Unheard of in this state. But you look at the improvement of Florida's big kids. They're talking about the kid Condon, who was injured the other night, didn't even play.
Yeah.
They're talking about him being a high first-round draft pick right now.
Yeah.
He was under-recruited. If you look at that kid from last year to this year, it's two different players. So everybody's talking about their perimeter game, which is off the charts, between Martin, Richard, hometown kid from Bartow, Clayton, Aberdeen coming off the bench. They've got great perimeter. But their two big kids are really, really good. And that's why they beat Auburn. Auburn didn't know what to do with those guys. They couldn't get second shots. I thought they were a little intimidated.
Yeah, you're right.
You don't see Auburn intimidated very much.
I watched
Auburn
that game.
was due for a game. They would do.
Yeah. I watched that game with my dad too, and it was just like Florida just kept punching. And every time Auburn with a little bit of a counterpunch, Florida just kept going, and they just didn't let up. And what an incredible performance. I want to ask you about Coach Cal at Arkansas. It's still weird not to see him rocking some semblance of blue, whether it's Memphis or Kentucky. What do you make of the job that he's done in year one, and how long is it going to take for him? Because I think with the NIL, they got deep pockets there. How long do you think it takes before they're amongst the elite, not just in the SEC, but in the country?
Everybody likes bashing guys that are on top. Okay? And especially if you give them a reason. So Calipari's brash, outgoing way of dealing with people and players and the media, I'm sure it, gets some people, a little bit sideways. I've known him since we were both grad assistants. He was at Kansas. I was at Georgia. Okay? What he's done in his career, nobody needs to badmouth him or say things like he can't coach. What I will tell you is his loyalty to players he recruits in terms of playing time and position, etc. I think those things have gotten him in a little trouble in terms of wins and losses. So you take, for example, this year, he signed a kid out of New York named Boogie Fland. Yeah. I mean, the kid is talented. He's a one and done. He's going to the NBA. He can do it all. And I've been saying it since the beginning of the year. He had 4 or 5 other kids that were high school All-Americans, all right? Including Carter Knox here in Tampa and some other guys. He gave the kid the ball, and the kid is one of those guys that the ball is in his hands. He tended to over-dribble, and everybody stood around. So now the kid gets injured. You don't want to see anybody get injured, but at the end of the day, the team is playing better without him because now people that needed the ball, like DJ Wagner, he's the one with the ball, and everybody's moving. They're cutting harder. They're playing better defensively. They're getting better shots. The ball is touching more people's hands every possession. They're like a different team. Again, Boogie Fland is going to be a top 15 draft pick, maybe 20, whatever it is. I don't know how they do it anymore. But the team is playing better without him, which is kind of weird because he was their best recruit. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And before I let you, I want to ask you about a team that I've been following since I was knee-high to a grasshopper and seeing what Duke has done this year. I mean, I don't think enough people are talking about the job that John Shire's done taking over for Mike Krzyzewski. And then, I mean, obviously it helps when you get a guy like Cooper Flagg come in. But what have you seen from the youngster from up there in Maine? It'd be a shock if he's not the number 1 pick next year, but it just seems like he's a guy that he can affect the game in so many different ways.
Few things. I was already out of business when John Shire came out of Chicago. But John Shire, people don't realize, John Shire was a top 10 high school player. John Shire was a great prospect, not a good prospect, a great prospect, okay? He went to Duke and had dynamite career. Stays on as an assistant. If you're an assistant at Duke, the one thing, you're going to learn how to run a program and how to deal with things because you're at the pinnacle of the business and it's a daily thing. You're at the pinnacle. What do you got to do to stay at the pinnacle? He's very bright. He is very connected with today's player. He's extremely poised. extremely poised on the sideline in front of the media. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. It's exactly how he used to play. And I think the guy is doing a phenomenal job. Will he do the job that Mike Krzyzewski did? Or you can ask the guy to win 5 NCAA champions. I don't think that's something that you could.
Right.
I think this guy's going to set his own trail, blaze his own trail, and become one of the great coaches, maybe in the history of the game, and stay at Duke an extremely long time with a lot of success. But the playing field's a little bit more level now. Okay, right. So he has Cooper Flagg, who's phenomenal. You think about it. I don't think anybody in this country that knows basketball can name me the last player from Maine that was a high school All-American and it's going to be a top NBA draft pick. Right. I don't know of any, and I've been around the game a long time. Mm-hmm. But he's a great recruiter, and that kid is a special talent. Now, he'll be gone in a year, and he's only 18. I think he just turned 18. But he's going to keep reloading. And he's going to reload with his kind of players. Right. You're not going to get into a bidding war about this kid or that kid, okay? Who knows what their NIL packages are? I have no idea. I do know this. In the old days, ACC guys made a lot of money barnstorming before the stuff was legal, okay? These ACC kids now, not only with the NIL package that they get from the schools, they can do a lot of stuff off the side and make their own deals.
Right.
Whether it's in the community, around the state of North Carolina. I mean, it's big business. It's big business up there. It's a different world, but the league is not the same as it used to be. The traditional teams aren't what they used to be. A lot of coaches have left, and it'll be interesting to see how things move forward in the ACC. And I'm a big ACC fan, but I grew up in SEC country. So I see the difference right now in terms of athletes, in terms of depth, in terms of how good each of the teams are compared to the other league. You know, bottom of the ACC is not very good. Now, I'll tell you this. Leonard Hamilton might be thinking about reneging on his resignation because his team's playing all out of their minds since he announced it. What they did last night at Wake Forest is crazy.
Yeah.
Down 14, come back and win the game in the last 10 seconds.
Unbelievable comeback. Yeah. And another job, Hubert Davis. I know a lot of people are not happy with how he's doing things at Chapel Hill either. So we'll see how that whole thing shakes out.
And they've been known to get rid of their own guys now.
Yeah.
It's not like – and look, I coached against Hubert Davis, and Charlie Ward, who I coached, is good friends with Hubert Davis. You know, they played together. He's a heck of a guy. But, again, it's a level playing field right now for the hierarchy of college basketball. You know, where it used to be Carolina and Duke, let's say, they got the best players. Them, Kentucky, a few others. Everyone else got the other kids, and you hoped and prayed they were as good at some point in their careers. But those schools got the best players in the country, hands down, every year. Every year. That's not going to happen anymore.
Right.
It's just not. Look at the kid that A.J. Dinebast, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I mean, he's going Brigham Young.
Yeah.
He's also getting $7 or $8 million, but that's where he's going. In the old days, that kid's going to Duke or going to Carolina, going to Kentucky. So who knows what's going on?
Different world now. Coach, how can I know you do camps and stuff. How can people sign up for camps and follow what you got going on?
Anybody wants to reach me, they can always email me at dzimroth@brighthouse.com. Easiest way to reach me.
Simple enough. Coach Z, the man, the one and only, the living legend. I appreciate you for all your time, my friend. Thank you so much.
Hey, you're friends with my in-laws. I mean, I never. You got a better relationship with the Russos than I do, for God's sake. I mean, he's my son-in-law. He sees you. He doesn't even talk to me.
Well, you know what that means? That means that we're going to see each other a lot more this baseball season. Z, you're the man. Thanks, brother. Talk soon.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You got it, pal. David Zimroth, man. You want to know college hoops? That's the guy right there. That is the connect. You want information right there. Love what he had to say about USF and Amir Abdur-Rahim. And yeah, there's the landscape in college basketball. And I'm a big college hoops guy. I have been since I was a little kid. There's just the passion of it it's just, I don't know if you can relate to anything, because just like it's Florida State. I turned that, I'm just scrolling through games, looking online. And I was like, oh man, Florida State, knowing that I was going to talk to Coach Z today. And I'm following. I'm like, they're coming back. And then I saw the final clip, and they won the game emphatically on a dunk when the game was out of hand. I'm just like, college hoops, man. You think you have a team pegged? This is how they're going to be. This is how that player is going to be. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks go by and it completely flips. And then that's not even mentioning March Madness, which is probably one of the craziest things in all the sports. All right, let's keep the conversation going. And we'll do it with our guy, the head coach of the Jefferson High School baseball team, my good buddy, Spencer Nunez. Spence, what's going on, brother? How are you?
Not much, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, man. Make sure you share this with all your families and all your Jefferson Dragon. Hopefully, I saw Pop Cuesta the other night at TC. I was like, oh, man. And then I saw you I saw you at USF on Sunday. So I was like, oh, I got to get Spence on this week, showing love to high school baseball. So, of course, having Miguel Menendez and Paulie Russo and then Chenzo Scagno and then yourself. I mean, there's just, what is it like this week? I mean, obviously, I coached against you when I was at Freedom when you were at Hillsborough. Now you're the head coach at Jefferson. It's been a couple of years now. I mean, this first week of regular season baseball has got to be like Christmas all week.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the feelings, right? I felt it for, 4 years as a player and now on my 14th year as a coach. So it's kind of like normal for me, but you still get that feeling, those butterflies, and preseason's nice because you kind of get all the kinks out, in practice the following week. But, this week's been fun. We got our first win on Tuesday against a, really good Bloomingdale team. And we're looking to, move to 2-0 tonight against Durant. So,
yeah, I mean, another well-coached team, of course. I mean, two teams there that have coaches that have been there a while. And that's, it's funny. I'm listening to what everybody's saying and I'm watching all these different things and going on Max Preps, and I'm starting to look at all the coaches and then especially the younger guys, right? I mentioned Paulie and I mentioned Chenzo and yourself. Like, you guys are baseball lifers and it's in your blood, right? Like, your dad coached you, you're there, you got your brother. Like, baseball really is like, it's a family sport. And I think in Tampa, it does such a great job of putting the spotlight on that. How important has your family been in this entire journey now to where you're, at Jefferson leading the way for the Dragons?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to them before I make any decision on jobs, on lineups. I talk to my brother, and I mean, I get to coach with my brother and my best friend. I mean, it can't get much better than that. So, my family's at every home game. They're at the away games that are pretty close. So the support system that I have or have had over the past 5 years at Jefferson has been phenomenal. It's basically what keeps you going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And then there's just so many competitive games. And again, I saw Pop Cuesta the other night, and I know he's still hanging around. What is it like to have a guy like that that's obviously been so instrumental to baseball here in our area, just still popping in, popping out? Like, I swear to God, he's got like the key to every single clubhouse in Hillsborough County, man. Pop is really one of a kind.
What's funny is he does our nameplates on our lockers for the players, and he does the names, and he still does a lot of stuff for us. And I just gave him my locker room key the other day. I said, you know what? You don't come announced anyways, so just have a key and come whenever you want. It's nice to have him around. We're getting to that, age right now where these guys don't even know who Pop Cuesta is. So we have to
scary, isn't it?
We kind of have to remind them who these guys are that have, kind of paved the way for us as coaches to take over and kind of do our own thing. But no, Pop's been great. It's been a great source of support. He still, makes sure that we have WD-40 on every lock on the facility. So, it's good to have him around.
You got that right. All the odds and ends, man. It's pretty great. Tell us about the team, man. Who are some of the guys that were instrumental into the victory the other night, and then guys that we should be keeping an eye on as the season progresses?
Yeah, so we kind of got we got a pretty interesting team this year. We lost a lot of senior leadership, so we're pretty young, but we do have some impact seniors. Jamarcus Benton, who had a great night the other night. He was 2 for 4 with a home run, got the win on the mound. And then we have catcher outfielder Nate Brewer, who's a transfer from Jesuit, who's going to be, a big key in the middle of the lineup. Isaiah Fernandez, who's our leadoff hitter, second baseman, 4-year starter, just like Jamarcus. And then our young guys. I mean, I can't say enough about our young talent this year. We have Ethan Sauvignon, who's our right-handed pitcher, first baseman. And then, we have a junior, KJ Sampson, who's a 3-year starter. So, I mean, it's a brand new team for us. We lost 7 or 8 starters from last year. We lost our pitching staff, over 100 innings on the mound. But these guys are up for the challenge. They work hard. We got to work a little bit more on the preparation and consistency, and that's what we preach for them. Like just discipline, set the standard across the street at school and on the baseball field. But, they seem to be responsive, and I'm thankful that I have Jamarcus and Isaiah who have been there, and KJ who have been there to kind of guide the young guys. So, I really, this team is like I'm starting fresh. We've kind of had the same guys.
Right.
Our first full group left, kind of starting new, kind of, implementing some new things at practice and, game time and stuff like that. So, this team is going to be interesting. And I just hope, we set ourselves up to peak at the right time throughout the season.
What are some, if not to get too in depth and don't want to give away any of your big trade secrets or anything, but what are some of the things like as far as adjustments? Because now this is year what for you at Jefferson?
Year 5 at Jefferson.
Year 5. So now, you have no holdovers, no carryovers. You kind of get a fresh slate with this entire thing. What can you do now in year 5, because you've been around, you have a little bit more of a comfort level to tweak those little things to really put your stamp on this program?
What we've had to do, this offseason is basically reset the standard. We kind of got a little complacent last year with the seniors. We're just so comfortable with each other. Right. So knowing that we have 13 underclassmen on our team. So knowing that we have that coming in, we had to reset the standard, reset the discipline, and kind of just go back to that, how we were our first 2 years, where we, if you're wearing the wrong shirt, I don't care what your story is, you got 30 polls. Mm-hmm. If you get in trouble in school, I don't care what your story is or your excuse is. Here's the standard. Here's the handbook. This is what you're going to abide by. And since we've done that, since the start of the spring, it's like a guy walks in with the wrong shirt. I walk in, he's running his 30 polls. Don't even have to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, we've just kind of reset ourselves, and kind of putting a premium on that standard and discipline.
Yeah, I got some grief a little while ago from our good buddy Dane Moore. He's like, "Damn, bro, you coached at Freedom and you got the Jefferson guy on before me." I said, "Sorry, bro. This is the way it goes." He said, "So I'll have him on a little bit later on in the year because he was busting my chop." I was gonna have him on anyway, but still, like, come on, man. Spence is my guy too, bro.
I talk to Dane almost every day, man.
He's just one of a kind, man. And like, to me, that's like one of the coolest parts is seeing. I think it's getting closer to 10 of guys, and I coached at Freedom for 5 years, I think it was, where there's like 5 to 10 guys that I coached against in high school that are now not just assistants, but head coaches. Yeah. I mean, how cool is that to be able to see Dane and Chenzo and some of these other guys that played in the Saladino tournament that now are kind of living out the dream of coaching high school baseball in the best city for high school baseball in the country.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like us, watching guys go to college,
Mm-hmm.
coming from your program, go to college, or coaching guys and now coaching against them. Like it's special. This county has provided that special bond between friends and colleagues. And it's definitely a special feeling to be in this county.
What are the plans for Saladino this year and how that whole thing shakes out?
Get through it.
Yeah.
Saladino is something like none of us really experienced throughout each season. We have to use so much pitching in 4 or 5 days. We get to host, which is nice. We're home. We don't have to, travel to Plant City or Sumner or wherever it may be. So we get to host. While that provides, a bit of a hectic schedule for us, we enjoy it. Pop Cuesta and Pete Scaglione have made the facility, the way it is, and people enjoy coming to Jefferson to watch Saladino. And it really helps us financially with, the concession stand, and we try to make the field look the best it can. So Saladino for us is a special time. I mean, my boss probably hates me during Saladino week, but, we got, our coaches will take a couple of days off, and it's just a special week for us. We let the kids really bond during that week. We let them go to, they eat together every day. They become a family during that week.
Who are some of the teams that you're looking at on the schedule, knowing that, like, if somebody has to go to one Jefferson game this year, whether it's home or road, well, we'll go home because we want to support the home crowd. But if there's one game that you would tell somebody to come check out because it'll probably be a pretty good affair, what would it be?
I don't know. Can I say all of them?
Yeah.
At home, I can't. I don't even know my home schedule because we don't have a dugout right now. But we do play Alonzo in our home opener next week.
Nice.
Not next week. I'm sorry, the following week on February 25th. then we have Leonard at home that Saturday. You know, those are Londi and Vic, you know, two great guys.
Right.
You know, they lead their program the way it's supposed to be led. So, I mean, I'd say early in the season, those two would be great. And to be honest, talking about Saladino, you know, we're at Jefferson all week. It's spring break to bring your kid out there and watch some baseball. You know, we're going to be out there all 4 days. So I think that's a good week to come watch some baseball.
You mentioned Londi. I had Alex, his son, on last week. So awesome to be able to watch a kid that, you know, grew up in this area in the bigs, now playing for the Rays. Man, how great is that to be able to have those guys? I mean, you mentioned about going to college, but there's such great examples of college players, college athletes, and pro ball guys that went to the same school or, you know, ate at the same restaurants as guys that, you know, how does that impact some of your players as they look to try to achieve their dreams about getting paid to play baseball?
Well, I mean, and Londi has it, you know, he gets those guys to come back. Obviously, Alex is his son. He's at Alonzo often. I try to do the same thing. I try to get those college guys, those pro guys back as much as possible to, you know, come hang out. You know, I texted a friend of the program, Tom Kochman, the other day with the Red Sox just to come talk to the team. And I think with those examples, we can remind our kids as much as we can what it takes to get there. The Tim Elkos, those guys, they didn't do it through being lazy and not working hard or not working hard in the classroom. So I think we use those examples more often than not. You know, hey, this is how you get there. You know, let Robbie Martin comes out every now and then and, you know, and kind of shares his story and, you know, he hits BP with the guys every day. And so that we try to just put those guys in front of our guys as much as possible, you know, and that way they can see how hard it is to get to, you know, where they're at.
Before I let you go, best hitter, best pitcher that you've seen either playing or coaching in Hillsborough County during your time.
Okay. All right. Best pitcher I've ever seen. I'd have to go Jose Fernandez.
Yeah,
I mean, that guy was electric.
That's my answer every time.
Yeah. And the best hitter for me, I'm a bit of a homer here. Michael Burgess.
Yeah. I saw Burgess. You see the video of him hitting a softball years ago? That thing is
I mean, Mike and my brother were close, you know, they graduated together. So I got to see that guy hit baseballs for 4 years. And then beyond that, when he used to come back when I was at Hillsborough, that's some power that, you know, you don't necessarily see every day.
Yeah, Michael Burgess was one of those names where it was almost like a myth where I remember people talking about, do you know this guy? Like, have you seen this guy hit? What do you mean I know this guy? Have you seen him hit? That dude hit. I remember the name Rock Shoulders. Does that
yeah. I mean, he graduated with Scooter and
Brandon, right?
Yeah, Brandon. That team was very good.
That dude hit a ball. I think Ramsey was on that team too. Rock hit a ball at Freedom one time over the baseball field, parking lot, football stadium on the other side. Hit one over the bleachers. I still don't think that ball's hit the ground.
Mike Smith hit one off of Hillsborough that went over the train tracks. I think. Speaking of hitter, you know, it's funny you mentioned Dane Moore. That guy owns me, by the way. I think he's like 8 for 8 off of me in high school. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna go back and edit this out because we don't want to give him anything to blow up his head more than it already is.
We got to make him feel good. You know, he's not on the show today.
There you go, Dane. We love you. Maybe the one and only Spencer Nunez, Jefferson High School head baseball coach. Ben, so proud of you, man. Keep up the great work there with the Dragons, and it's only a matter of time before I see you out at the ball field. So best of luck. Continue everything great that you're doing over there, and have a great rest of your week, partner. Good luck tonight.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. Spencer Nunez, another one of those baseball names, right? We mentioned it yesterday with Chenzo Scanio. Like, there's baseball names, guys that have been around the Bay Area, and that's what's special. That is what's so great. And you see behind me here, like, look at all the different teams. We got the Jesuit hat and the USF and the Rays and UT and TC, Rowdy, Sun, everywhere, right? Like, this is what it's about. And it doesn't matter what level. Doesn't matter. It could be at the prep level. It could be at the travel ball level. It could be at the collegiate level or at the pro level. Like, that kind of stuff runs deep. And when you see an Alex Faedo who went to Alonzo High School getting picked up by the Rays, like, everybody in the city, like, goes off. They're excited about it. When you have players and teams and like with the Tampa Bay Sun, right? Brand new team going out there to that first game. And I think it's important to make sure when we have these new endeavors, when we have these new teams and new players around, to go out there for at least that first time. I know if you're going to go out for the first time, you're probably going to go after that, but Sofia Chepenik is going to join us here in about 5 minutes from the USF women's lacrosse team. Like, going to that game was something that I'll never forget. Going to the first ever game for the Tampa Bay Sun there at Riverfront Stadium there at Blake High School was something with my girlfriend and her 2 daughters, is something that I'm never going to forget. It was so impactful. It was history in the making. And any time that you can go out there and be a part of something like that, I implore you to go do it. Get on out there and go check out these games here in the Tampa Bay area. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Recher, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Share this with your friends and family as well. Dave Velasquez, what's going on, buddy? That hockey game was badass last night. Ready to see USA, but Canada looks deadly. I get that, but I don't know. There was something about Canada last night that I wasn't too thrilled with. I would be worried about Jordan Bennington between the pipes. He is all over the place. He's like diving to one side. One thing that you see with Andrei Vasilevsky is he's very calm in the net, right? He's very composed. His vision, he can see the puck. Like, I don't want my goaltender flopping and flying all over the place and overcommitting. You don't want that. So, yeah, you're going to make some good saves, and they're going to be some highlight reel, stops. But you want consistency. You want ease. Carey Price, longtime Montreal Canadiens goaltender, like, you never saw him flying all over the place. Same thing with Vazzy. When it does happen, when he does make a save behind his back or something crazy, like, it stands out. But usually when that happens, when you have to have one guy diving from one to the other, it's one of 2 things. One, they're not seeing the puck properly, or 2, they're not positioned properly. So when you look at that, I don't know. I think that can pose trouble for Canada as we move forward. Now, another thing is the defense. I wasn't thrilled with how Drew Doughty looked last night. I didn't like how a guy like Colton Parayko looked, and now you lose Shea Theodore too. So that's half of your decor. I mean, McCarr played well. Taves played well. I like Josh Morrissey, but he picked up a penalty last night. I think that's the big weakness with this team, defensively and the netminder. They're going to score their goals. But like we talk about in any sport, it's not always how many you score, it's about how many you keep out. And with the Tampa Bay Lightning, we talk about that. I mean, there's nothing more indicative of their success than how well their defense and their goaltending kind of get together and prevent the other team from scoring. So that's a key for Team USA tonight. Again, rocking the Tyler Adams as USA takes on Finland tonight. Tomorrow is going to be the big one, or Saturday, Saturday night, USA and Canada. That game is going to be nuts. And the game last night was a lot more physical than I think people thought it was going to be. Oh, it's going to be an exhibition like the All-Star game. Guys are just going to be skating around. No. That's not what happened last night. There were some big hits. I mean, Connor McDavid got put on his ass last night too, which was kind of, hey, man, you're not afraid to hit the best player in the world. You got to be ready to roll. That second period tells me that this tournament is going to be about ebbs and flows, ups and downs. You can't let your foot off the gas pedal, because you let one of these teams in, before you know it, you're going to be behind. You're going to be tied. If you watched that game last night and you saw Team Canada score that goal in the first period, you're like, in the first minute of the first period, mind you, you're like, this game is going to be 5-1. It's going to be, I don't think anybody thought it was going to go to overtime. And that's exactly what happened. Joel Eriksson-Ek is a guy that I really, really am a fan of. The Minnesota Wild power forward. He's a house in front of the net. He scored the game-tying goal there in the third. And then you go to overtime. Listen, Mika Zibanejad lifts that puck. William Nylander on that 2-on-1 at the end. If he's able to get a shot on goal, we could be having a different conversation today. Because don't think that the people there at the Bell Center in Montreal weren't nervous about what happened last night. They could act like they're all happy, and I know they went home really happy because of the goal by Mitch Marner on the assist from Sidney Crosby. But in no form or fashion did Canada look like a team that was like dominant. They're going to roll through everybody. So I know Thaw is asking who had the game-winning goal last night. It was Mitch Marner, the third assist of the night for Sidney Crosby. And I like how after the game, when they do the 3 stars, they have all the players on the ice and they hand a Rolex, I think it is, to the number 1 star, which was, Sid the Kid, the captain of the team. It's just the way it goes. He's one of the greatest players of all time. And to have him on a team and on a power play with Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon and Sam Reinhart and Cale Makar, and just stay out of the penalty box. That is going to be the most important thing. But I love seeing Hagel and Sorelli out there. I really thought Brandon or Anthony, one of those two guys, was going to be the one to score the game winner. Nobody from the Lightning got hurt. To me, that's the most important thing. All right, let's bring her in. She just continues to ball out. It's Sofia Chepenik from our USF women's lacrosse team. Sofia, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I was just saying a little while ago, being at that game the other night, it was unbelievable. The love and the support that you all got to be there on the sidelines, walking up and down right as the clock ticks down to 0, to see how happy you ladies were. I've never seen that. I've been covering sports here for over a decade. I've covered every single team. You see my background. I am everywhere. I've never seen a team, and I've been to Stanley Cup games, and maybe it's not to that, right? But after a regular season game, there was such joy. It wasn't just like happiness, like, hey, we won. There was like, it was like an exhale of joy. Describe what that feeling was like. It's one thing to play in that game, but Sofia, to win, to dominate, to get that victory, can you put that into words for me?
Oh my gosh, it was incredible. I think obviously for a year and a half, some of us have been here. And so building up one night for that long and then it finally be here, we were like, oh my gosh, like it's finally here. The day that we've been waiting for, a 24-hour slot that we've been waiting for 365, over 365 days is finally here. And I think we were just so ready to show just Tampa Bay, like what women's lacrosse is, who we are, what our team has worked so hard to build. And then to dominate in our first game, I think we were finally like, yeah, we're here and we're ready to play. And then also it just comes from like the fans. Like we had heard so many people were coming. Obviously the student athletes talk, and parents talk, but we didn't know like the love we were going to get from the Tampa Bay community. So having that, I think just made us want to play 10 times better too.
Yeah, and I was hearing the same things. And I actually, and this is pretty cool. And I don't know if you know this. So Friday, I was actually on the radio play-by-play call of the softball game against Michigan. So I'm there. There's hundreds of people there. Michigan's there. Florida's there. There's a lot of people there, and it is loud. And in like the fifth inning or something, I heard this like roar behind me, and I was like, oh my, I was like, what is that? And I go, oh my God, that is the lacrosse game going on behind us. And then I looked at my phone and it was like 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. I'm like, oh my God, these ladies are killing it. But you're right. To go there, you think there's going to be support, but then you see that. And it's like, what's the one moment that's going to live on in your memory when you think back to that night?
I think there's a lot, but I think for me, it was just walking out. So I take the draw. So that's basically what starts the game. And I think to walk out center field and like, have my ritual that I do like before every draw I take, but then to look around and see this is the night that we've all been waiting for. And there's so many people here supporting us. It's so incredible to play alongside people you love too. So I was just so happy. And I don't know, we talked about it, that this was going to be a night that we were never going to forget and that we were going to tell our kids about, and that we got to start the USF women's lacrosse program. So I think it's just, wow, there's not like one moment that I can pinpoint, but definitely walking out to take the starting draw was really cool.
Sofia, just think about it like this. This program can go on for the next 200, 300, 500 years. But there'll only be one person to ever take that first draw, and it is you. So that is something to certainly wear as a badge of honor. Looking up, and I've done my research. I had Coach McCord on last week, and I just walked away going, they're going to be a good program just because of the way she speaks, and she just so positive and full of energy and optimism. I just loved conversing with her. And I asked the first question in the first post-game press conference ever, so I'm pretty happy about that too. But why USF? Because you had an incredible career. You've had an incredible career. I mean, you probably could have gone anywhere, but why USF?
Well, there's 4 main reasons. The first being the coaches, and going into the transfer portal, obviously kind of living out a year of college and knowing more of what I want. I knew that I wanted a coaching staff in an environment that was going to value me as a person over an athlete. And I think that can be really rare in today's like college athletics. And so the moment I stepped on campus, I've actually known the McCords since 6th grade. They were there the first time I picked up a stick, which is really funny because it's like full circle. But actually the first day that I entered the transfer portal, they called me just to make sure that I was okay and that like, just to check on my mental. And then coming here and visiting, I literally left in tears because I felt so valued and seen as a person. And that was like the main reason was them and just kind of how they made me feel. The second, just USF athletics commitment to being a pioneer in women's athletics and just women's NIL. I think like the entire community here is behind us, and you really feel it for the female student athletes too. It's not just football, it's not just basketball. It's they want to get behind these sports. And then third, obviously being able to build a legacy and to create something from the ground up and having that exhibition year to do so was something that was really special. And obviously I came from an inaugural program, but the way that I saw that they were going to build it and the foundation that they had already before anyone had stepped on campus and kind of what they expected from us, I knew that this was going to be a place that was going to win championships, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I wanted to leave a legacy that was like, wow, I'm the first of it, and I got to build the culture to what it is now and set that standard. And then fourth, just being able to come back to Florida and give back to the sport that's given me so much. Obviously, it's not as big yet down here, but being able to grow it in the Tampa Bay community was something that I didn't want to pass up on either.
Sophia, I'm going to tell you this right now, and I see it all the time. You will always have a home at USF. You'll always have a home at Tampa because of what you and your teammates are doing. It's historical. The one thing that really stood out to me, and it was right before halftime, and I heard like click, clack behind me, and there was like 40 girls between 8 and 12 or whatever. And my girlfriend's got 2 that live here that are 9 and 12, 9 and 11. And I'm just like, oh my God. And they were so excited. And it's just such a great thing to know that they have somebody to look up to. They have something to aspire to be. And you're right. USF, and they've been on it since day one. I remember they were one of the first before NIL really became a thing. Michael Kelly was like, this is what we're doing. And it's for everybody. And it wasn't just like, oh, we're doing NIL for just the guys or just for football. He's like, this is all of our student athletes. And I was like, wow, what an aggressive approach. And now it's like years later, and you're a shining star. You're an example of that, of like, yeah, here's Sophia. She's balling out. Tell me about, obviously, the win. I mean, obviously you smoked them in the first game, but then the next game against Mercer, how you go on the road. So obviously you don't have the same, and I don't want to say manufacturer like it's a bad thing, but you don't have that same kind of juice from the home crowd in the first game. Like, it's hard to duplicate and replicate that same type of emotion and energy. How were you ladies able to do that? And what was kind of the key to the success to make you guys 2-0?
I think it's just falling back on our preparation. We've put so much time and effort into just our game and our sport and what we want this team to be and the expectation that we have. And so we know each game, we don't want to think, 2 games ahead or 3 games ahead. It's the game that's right in front of you. The only team that can beat you is the one that you play that day. And so that's what our coaches preach to us. And especially Mercer, they're a great team. And the only people that have beat them on their home field have been ranked opponents. And so we knew going into it that this was going to be a battle. Like, it wasn't just going to be a hand-me game. And so I think going into it and then just kind of dealing with some adversity as a team, we knew how to combat it. And I think we just do a really good job of building each other up. We really are a family, and our mantra this year is together. And so I think just like coming together, and obviously the coaches can say stuff to us and they say amazing things and they're our biggest supporters, but like you really have to find it from within, and like it has to start from the team. And so I'm just so proud of everyone. I think we did a great job handling some adversity and then kind of started to get the ball rolling, and momentum is so important. So once we got our momentum going, the game just was secured. So
it's so funny that you say that, because when you're scoring all these goals, lacrosse is such an interesting sport. And I've really, ever since Coach McCord, I said, hey, give me like 3 things that I can tell people that don't know lacrosse. And she was like, give me this. I'm like, okay. And I'm writing it down. I'm watching video. Like, I'm learning the sport. I played hockey growing up. So there are crossover similarities to certain things with, man advantage, power plays kind of things. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm putting it all together. But the one thing that's crazy about lacrosse is that you score a goal, you go right back to try to for the draw, and then you win it again, you score again. Like, sometimes, like it happened in the first game, the ball starts rolling down the hill, and then before you know it, it's 5 shots, 5 goals. And how crazy is that to build on that momentum when it's going well, and to kind of thwart that momentum when it's not going well, especially where you're at, because if you could be the person losing those draws too.
Yes, no, definitely. I think it's funny because the draw is just such a different aspect of the game. Like it's like special teams in football. Like
Mhm.
you have some people that are amazing special teams players and like they can get the job done and they can, make a huge momentum shift. And I think like it really does come down to the draw. If you win the draw, you win the game, is what we like to
Mhm.
say in our sport.
I like it.
Um, but then also just momentum in general. I think getting momentum is one thing, and then like being able to build off that, and you can feel it when it's kind of like in your court, and that's a huge thing in our sport. But then also like if it's going the other way, it's kind of like we have a thing on our team next 10. It's like the next 10 seconds are the most important. So like
Mhm.
next 10, next 10, next 10. And so just making like one good play and then building off of that. Even like in practice, if we're having like a low energy practice or it's not the best that day, we just like come together and we're like, okay, next 10, make one good play and then build off of that and everything will start to come together. And the only two things that you can control are your effort and your attitude. So if you're giving 100% effort and if you have a great attitude, then everything else will fall in line.
I love that effort and attitude. I used to have a T-shirt that said "Attitude is a decision," and I live by
Mhm.
that to this day. And it's about perspective, and you can worry about what
Definitely.
just happened to you, or adjust. Who are some of the other leaders on this team with you that are kind of like rallying the troops and to
Mhm.
maybe kind of rescue guys from some bad moments, or just kind of keep
Mhm.
things light?
I think like we have so many different personalities, and obviously some a way that I lead is just my energy, but then another amazing leader is Caitlin Tartaglione, number 7 on the midfield, and she's just a great leader by example, and is someone that you can look to kind of have more like calm nerves and but still be confident in herself, and that's something that I've always like looked up to with her is she's very soft spoken, but when
Mhm.
she does say something, it's just a huge benefit to our team. And then also Maggie Newton, she's incredible. She also brings the energy. She's just a great person to be around, super sweet. And I think like, if she's saying something a little bit more serious, you gotta listen because she's always has a smile on her face.
Mhm.
Um, and then like just leadership wise on the field, Juliana George, number 10. She's a smaller attacker, but she is incredible. And
Fierce,
she
man.
Yes. Yes. And you wouldn't expect it from her, but she's a great player. She's amazing. And then Paige Pagano in goal. She just incredible. She does a lot. And then like to go off of defenders, Morgan Zimmerman, she is just a workhorse. Like if you need the ball back, she'll get it back for you and she'll run up the field. And the same thing with Claire Natoli. I think we have so many just different leaders on our team, and I think that's kind of what makes us also special. And everyone on our team has a voice, and so we all respect what each other says, and I think that's why we work so well.
What
So.
about the celebrations when you score a goal? Not because you can like get rid of your stick. Is there a rule that you can't like launch the stick so you're gonna hit somebody? Because you got to put it down. They check this. I just think it's so cool. Like, is that choreographed? Can you only go to a certain line? Like, take us through that to
Mhm.
people that don't know.
So after you score, you have to drop your stick and they have to make sure it's legal. And if it's not, then obviously the goal gets taken back and that stick is out of the game. Um, but
And when you say legal, is it because of they want to make sure that the net is a little more like not as pliable? Because if
if
it's
it's too deep, it could be like an advantage.
because you can hold the ball in there and people can't
Mhm.
knock it out,
Yeah,
right? Okay, good. That
exactly.
was my guess. I'm right.
Yes.
Okay, good. Woohoo.
So I feel like for me, there's nothing choreographed. It's kind of like whatever comes to mind. And I would say if you like hit someone really hard with your stick, there could possibly be a foul or you might get a little
Mhm.
warning. But the first goal I scored, actually the ref came up to me, and he was like, "You have to watch like how far you throw your stick because you might hit people." And I was like, "All right." But rewatching it wasn't even like really close to anyone, but I guess there is maybe a rule where you can't throw it too far, but I don't really think that we have any choreographed like stick drop routine. I would say
Mm.
the only thing that we do is like if you have a deep pocket, like I have a very deep pocket, so I'll slam my stick on the ground so it kind of like tightens them a little bit.
Yeah, smart.
So
I
yeah.
think you might need to do something though, right? I mean, the Chepenik could, I mean, it take Tampa
Yeah.
Bay by storm. Uh, Another thing I know about you is that you are a singer. I know you did the
Mhm.
national anthem at the USF women's basketball game. I remember this, and I go,
Mhm.
I can't wait to see her play lacrosse. And it's one thing you're like, oh wow, she's got a nice voice. Is she a good player? And then you're a great player too. And I'm like, man, she's got all these talents. What's the go-to karaoke song for Sofia Chepenik?
Hmm. Let's see. I love Adele. Probably Love in the Dark by Adele.
Really? Adele's not an easy vocal range.
She is like, she's my favorite. I actually saw her with my mom this past summer, and she was incredible. So.
Did you ever see the YouTube video of the Adele impersonators?
Yes, and then she went and
then
was
she
also
started singing. They were like, "Oh my god, that's her!" And they were like crying. It was great.
Yes, it was amazing.
Who else has like a special? Does anybody else have like a special talent on the team? Like they can dance, or they can rap, or they can sing, or they can draw, or they can juggle, or do gymnastics, or anything like that? Because I had a friend of mine that was like, he was a guy that could just do unbelievable cartwheels, backflips.
Yeah.
Like could have been a freaking Olympian.
Well, Kerrigan Gilmore, she plays defense. She can dance and flip, and it's incredible. She like do a backflip in the middle of practice sometimes, and I'm like, that's insane. And then Michaela Ness can also play the guitar very, very well. She pulled it out at our Halloween practice, and we were all like in shock by how well she played the guitar. So
did you do a duet? Did you sing?
No, we didn't. She's on a different Olympic team. We have like 4 little teams within our team. Okay. They're called our Olympic teams, and she's on a different one, and it gets very, very competitive. So there's no crossing over.
So what is that? Tell me what does that entail?
So basically we have points that you can get for different like activities, whether it's like who can clean the field the fastest. That's like 5 points. Or like who we have like in the weight room, we'll have like strength days. Like if you're like an iron bowl and things like that, who's the strongest, who's the fastest. And then we'll just play like different mini games. So like mini sticks. Last year we played basketball, we played volleyball. And you just basically build up points over the span of the year, and whoever has the most points at the end of the year wins. So my team won last year, and we're planning to win again this year.
What did you win? Did you win a prize?
We won a lunch with Coach.
Nice. So she put this whole thing into motion. Is this her idea?
Yes, it is her idea. She had it at her former school too, and then so like my Olympic team name is Boss Bunch. So, like, that will be the Olympic team name for, like, the rest of the time that there's a team.
Wow. So, what went into Boss Bunch?
Well, we're very loud and obnoxious and annoying, if you would have asked our team. But we have a lot of fun, and we're very competitive. So, that's why everyone's, like, doesn't like us. We're, like, the hated team. But that's the best because we always have a chip on our shoulder. So
just tell them I'm not cocky, I'm confident. And when you tell me I'm the best, it's a compliment. There you go. That's
exactly.
one of my favorite lines of all time. The great Sofia Chepenik. Please go out and support our USF women's lacrosse team. All the information, go usfbulls.com. They're back in action Friday night, tomorrow night.
Yes.
It's Faculty Appreciation Day. You want to spend a nice Valentine's Day. You want to take your kids out there. This is where you want to go. They're facing Lehigh at Corbett Stadium. Again, go usfbulls.com. And then Tuesday, a big matchup against the Florida Gators, USF Alumni Appreciation Day, and USF Student Bucket Hat giveaway as well, which I know was a big hit last year. So some big games coming up for Sofia Chepenik and our USF women's lacrosse team. This has been a lot of fun. Congratulations on all of your success. And I'm just so happy that you're one of the leaders of this team. You're 2-0. Keep those winning ways going. Have a great rest of your weekend. Good luck tomorrow night. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. Sofia Chepenik, man. She is all over it. I love those mini games, the Olympic teams, that type of competition. That breeds success. I truly believe that. One of the things that we used to do growing up with our high school baseball team is we'd always compete, man. We'd always do inside, outside. Like it didn't even matter if it had anything to do with baseball. We were just always competing, whether it was dancing, whether it was dressing, like that kind of stuff goes a long way. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, go check out the USF women's lacrosse team. I love to see what they got going on there. And you can just tell when you listen to somebody like Sofia Chepenik, but when you listen to Coach Mindy McCord last week, there's just certain qualities about coaches when they say things to you, you just know that they're going to be good. You just know that they're going to be successful. Listen, there's also people on the other side, players, coaches. Like, remember Jonathan Drouin from the Lightning? Remember him? I remember I was talking to him one day, and he's just like, he obviously didn't have the greatest tenure with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this isn't personal, right? But just talking to him, you could just tell like something was off, whether he didn't want to be there or he just wasn't confident. Like there was just something you can tell. And it wasn't personal. He wasn't being mean, but he wasn't as, and not everybody's engaging, right? We know that with our guy, Nikita Kucherov, but there was just something, if that type of attitude and that type of talk is reflective on the field, on the ice, on the court, then you can kind of put 2 and 2 together, right? Can't do that with Cooch. He does his own thing. But with Drouin, that same disposition that he had on the ice was the same one they had in the locker room, and just like an intimate, kind of throwaway conversation. It's just like, sometimes you can really tell like how somebody is going to do and how they're going to fare and whether they're the right guy or not. Now, is it foolproof? No, not 100%. Sometimes you get confused, or sometimes you're going to get hoodwinked. One guy that I thought was going to be a good choice was Jeff Scott, head coach of the USF football team, and it did not work out. I remember talking to him at USF Day we had before the USF women's basketball game, and he was saying something to the effect of like, I'm going to remember you guys when we get this program back to where it needs to be. And I was like, man, I like that. And it's not always the rah-rah BS, like, oh, you can run through the wall and things like that. And that's not always that. It's just being genuine and being transparent and not just saying the same old shit. Like, it's being real. And even though it didn't work out with Jeff Scott, right, I still think he was a real dude. And I really hope that he does well in whatever he does, moving forward, because he was a really, really nice guy. Mark Topkin with an update down from spring training there in Port Charlotte. Raised Ryan Pepio and Taj Bradley through around 20 pitches of live batting practice to a group of Danny Jansen, Ben Rortvedt, Curtis Mead, and Jake Mangum. Cash said both pitchers look good. And a couple of names there that have not been mentioned a lot when we're talking about the Tampa Bay Rays, and that's Ben Rortvedt, get Rortvedted, and Curtis Mead. Curtis Mead has got to be a guy where and that's why I think you should call these guys up when you're talking about the Carson Williams of the world, and why I don't think teams should be sitting there having these guys marinate in AAA. Like, bring them up. Curtis Mead was another guy. Wait, be patient. Wait. And now what? Like, nobody's mentioned Curtis Mead. We didn't mention him in our talk with Mark Topkin. We didn't mention him in our talk with Neil Solondz. I mean, eventually you become a guy where, all right, are you really going to fit into this entire equation of helping this team win? I mean, Jonathan Aranda, another guy. And I think he's got power and he's shown some flashes. Both guys have, but you want consistency. You want guys that are going to be able to contribute day in, day out, night in, night out for this team to help them win. And I just don't know, like, where are they when it comes to the equation? Because we know Danny Jansen's going to be the starter behind the plate. Up the middle, it's going to be Brandon Lau and probably Taylor Walls until Ha-Seong Kim comes back. Where do you go from there? Then you have a guy like Jose Caballero who's going to be able to factor into this entire thing. He's going to be like a super utility guy, and he's got such a great disposition. I love this guy. Very, very excited about that. But we'll see. We'll see. The big news today is that the New York Jets have announced that they are splitting from Aaron Rodgers, and they wish him success. It was a tweet that they put out earlier today. Am I the only one that finds it odd that these teams have to announce every single thing that they're doing on Twitter? Do we really need to know that we've just finished an interview with blah, blah, blah for our general manager position? Like, I don't know. It's such a weird thing to announce. And now this one with the Jets saying, we are moving in a different direction. The Jets didn't give a reason for the decision, saying only they met with Rodgers last week and shared that our intention was to move in a different direction at quarterback. Where does Aaron Rodgers go next year is a very interesting proposition, and I think that the place that he should go is to the New York Giants. Go to the Giants. You stay there in the New York area. You're still a big money guy. They are not a quarterback away. They need a veteran. Why not bring in Aaron Rodgers? Well, who else are you going to get? I want a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I like headlines. I like big stories. And listen, there were some games last year where Aaron Rodgers still had some zip on the ball. This is still a guy. Remember, it usually takes a year or so. And I know he's 41, right? But popped his Achilles. You're never going to be that guy the next year. It always takes a year. We've heard this many, many times before. This isn't new. And I know it's going to be harder for him to come back as a 41-year-old dude. But, I mean, I think back to one of the games in Miami against the Dolphins. They lost that game, but he was 27 of 39 for 339. I mean, he threw for 3,800 yards last year, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Like, we're sitting here acting like Aaron Rodgers is done for, and he can't throw and he can't do any of this stuff. Like, you obviously have to block for him and you have to make certain accommodations. But, imagine him with a guy like Malik Neighbors. Giants are probably going to go out and get some more picks and, get some more guys to be able to help. But the Jets were an absolute dumpster fire. I don't know if any quarterback would have made a difference. I think Aaron Rodgers to the Giants makes a lot of sense. Go there, and why not? Why not, man? I mean, you look at who they have. Do you want to go out and get a Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp? They need a lot. And I wonder if Aaron Rodgers is done. I don't know. I'd like to see the comeback. Charles. I thought the Jets were going to be good. I was dead wrong with that too. That's why for people that are like, oh yeah, you can just make these predictions and say all these crazy things and don't put your name on it. I don't care. Like, I thought Aaron Rodgers and the Jets were going to have a great year last year. Very kind of Tom Brady Bucks-ish, but we didn't see that. We didn't see that at all. We also know that, according to Ryan Burr of the Big Ten Network, the Steelers have made inquiries to the Jaguars about a trade for quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Interesting. Trevor Lawrence earns, on the 10th day of the 2025 league year, earns a $35 million option bonus. Before that, a trade would trigger a $30 million dead money charge. He's in the 7-year, $306 million deal. Why would the Jacksonville Jaguars do something like this? I don't think that makes any sense. For the Steelers to make that call, I think they want to get younger than what they saw with Russell Wilson. They probably look at Justin Fields going, that's not going to be our guy. So what does Pittsburgh do? Because you're looking at the rest of the teams in the division going, we're going up against Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson for the next 10 years. And if we don't have a quarterback that can spin it and be able to win different kinds of ways, you're going to be in trouble. That's the key when you're talking about sports and teams that are going to have championship aspirations. You have to be able to win in a multitude of ways. You have to make sure that if it's a close game, you can win that defensive battle. Special teams game, you can do that as well. High flying affair, yes. Look, that's what Kansas City Chiefs have been able to do. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles have done. That's what these other teams need to strive to be able to. What happens when you get your number one option taken away? Can you still be productive? That's what you've seen in the past. And who did that better than anybody? Taking it away was Bill Belichick. He identified that was your number one option. I'm going to take that guy away. If you can still beat us, more power to you. Tip your hat. David Terry says, I can see Rodgers in Vegas. Also, don't know if you watched it, but that goal by Everton was way over the +5 at the end of that game. Yeah, what a crazy game that was yesterday at Goodison Park. Everton, Liverpool, the Merseyside Derby, two teams that clearly don't like each other. There was 4 red cards after the game. Liverpool still atop the table in the Premier League. Everton staving off getting relegated. And I know that goal was way over the +5 at the end of the game, but there were some stoppages in that first 5 minutes where the referee has the ability and to add more time on, and he's looking at his watch. I still think that's a very antiquated way to do things. How in soccer, the main referee in the middle can kind of decide to add another 45 and add another 2 minutes. And sometimes the added time is way less. Sometimes it's way more. But go back and watch that game. And James Tarkowski, who scored the goal to make it 2-2, he's a defenseman that doesn't score a ton of goals. But it was, listen, a goal's a goal, a win's a win. James Rose Porter says, don't go there. Don't go there with what? Tell me. David Terry, number 1 BS. But yeah, what a good contest. And there's some good action this weekend as the Premier League gets back underway. I know I'll be watching Man U and Tottenham this Sunday, 2 teams that should be in the top half of the league, top 6 of the league, but they're just severely underperforming with 2 coaches. Ange Postecoglou with the Spurs. Is he on the hot seat from Daniel Levy and the crew up there? Is a guy like Ruben Amorim. I don't think he is, but it is just not very pretty to watch every single time Tottenham or Manchester United take the pitch. You never know what you're going to get. You do know what you're going to get every Thursday at 1:30. And that's this guy right here. The one and only Eddie in the yard, Eddie on the ice, Eddie in his office, Eddie with the dog, Eddie on vacation, Eddie with the wife, Eddie, don't call me Eduardo unless you know me, Eddie. Eddie Oos Life. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? How we doing?
Good. Man, that game last night, brother. I don't know about you, but I think the one thing that stood out to me was on that power play where Hebben went to take the shot, and then Cirelli was going out there to block it. I was like, no.
It was that slow motion play at the end of the movie.
And he blocked
it. Oh no.
And it hit his stick and went out to play. And I was like, oh my God, man. That's and if you're the Golden Knights, you're looking at Shea Theodore going down with injury and you're going, why are we doing this again? Because if you're them, now you're watching the game tonight going, please Jack Eichel be okay. Please Jack Eichel be okay.
Absolutely.
That's the risk you run, right, Ed, when you're doing a tournament like this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. To be honest, I wasn't excited about the Four Nations going in too much because of just that. You're putting a lot of players at, top players at risk, right? But I did, from watching from afar, the atmosphere, and especially, Team Canada playing in Montreal, you could sense the energy in the building and everything. And you've been to the Bell Center. It's a wild place to watch a hockey game, but no matter what it is, and then you magnify it by that. And I thought it was a really good night, really good event, really good game to start off with. And but yeah, every team now, especially after seeing the Theodore injury, is kind of holding on to hope that their players make it out okay physically. But and again, the stuff that we talked about yesterday, last week is these players want to represent their country so much that, they're probably playing through a lot of things, mid-season, no matter what, just to get there. And, we don't know really what Sidney Crosby's playing through right now, but, it really, there's a different adrenaline level when the game starts in these things. But yeah, I think every GM, every coach is clutching their chair handles right now to be like, okay, let's just get through this.
Yeah, I was looking at Crosby, and that was only a second shift in overtime last night because that was a long overtime.
Yeah.
What do you think about the two things that I know a lot of people were talking about on social media last night from this tournament that could possibly be taken over to the NHL regular season, and that's being a 10-minute 3-on-3 before the shootout and 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points if you win it in overtime in the shootout. Do you think, how realistic do you think that is from coming to fruition?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I think the TNT guy said it on the broadcast is that, with the 10-minute overtime, the concern is mainly, I would say from the Players Association being like, there's so many games that go to overtime now, how much does that build up on guys over the course of a long schedule, even those 5 minutes, those extra 5 minutes over the course of a game? Does it make for better hockey? Absolutely. And like I said, we years ago, people kind of liked the shootout. Now it's become this thing that's like,
right.
This is why, how are you settling critical points with that? But I'd like to see it, but again, I think that's the thing I think that's something that's going to come up in the next CBA. I know Bettman talked about how, we really shouldn't worry about, that CBA being, if there are any hindrances to the CBA. I think that'll come up in the discussions, but I think that'll be the players to kind of decide, hey, do we want this? Because it is going to be a little bit more of a grind, because there are a lot more games going to overtime nowadays. And teams are more willing, and Lightning are probably one of them right now, is you want to get points any way you can. So you're going to try to, push a game to overtime maybe and take your shot in 3-on-3, especially a team like the Lightning who has a lot of really good skill position players when they go on 3-on-3. So obviously, over the past couple of years, you'd wish they'd be a little bit better in that 3-on-3.
Right.
But and what was the other thing was the point structure. Yeah. That's interesting because I do think that, again, now going back to that, is that teams are points matter so much in this league, especially we look at kind of the crunch that teams are in right now, and I think it would add a lot more interest, to some of the games, and probably a lot more strategy in terms of, how do you get these extra points when they're being handed out? So I think that actually adds a little bit to it. I'd love to see that, to be honest. The 3-on-3, I just worry about, there's always such a physical toll that these guys play in an 82 game schedule, and they battle through it to get to the playoffs and to be at their best in the playoffs. I'm not saying that would take away from the level of play come the postseason. I think anything that could possibly do that, you've got to wonder about, because these guys already, like we said last week, these guys already go through so much stuff to get there, to get to game 82, and to get through, 4 grueling rounds of postseason hockey to get there. We've seen it. We've seen it when they,
right.
Yeah. How much it matters when they get eliminated in the first round. We've seen how much it matters when they make it all the way. So, I'd hate to think that would affect guys' careers in the long term. And I think that's really what it comes down to, because a shorter career means, less ability to, make money. And, you got to worry about that big picture when you think about it from the player's perspective.
Yeah, and I wonder too if the NHL takes the route of the NFL, where it goes, yeah, we don't really care, because the NFL doesn't care about the health, because at the end of the day, it's all about the almighty dollar. So if if hockey wants to continue generating these big revenues and the salary cap going up, like, obviously something has to, there's got to be some kind of trade-off, right? So I get that aspect of it, but as we see in the NFL, these decisions that they're making, I mean, you're seeing TV deals, you're seeing the ratings go up, you're seeing halftime shows talked about around the world, right? I wonder if the NHL kind of leans the other way, right? Or leans the same way as the NFL does and goes, yeah, I know it could be more hockey, but maybe they make it 4-on-4, right? So it's less ice to cover. Nathan McKinnon hated it last night. And I'm like, yeah, okay, bro, of course you'd hate it, because you just gave him one end of the ice to the other, and then you shoot the puck every time. Like, of course you're going to be tired.
Right.
I don't want to hear from you, obviously, bud. Like, we know you're going to be tired as hell. But it was cool to see the Lightning guys out there last night. I mean, Point with the assist there on the Marchand goal. I thought Cirelli and Hagel with the penalty killing, and then I thought Victor Hedman was one of the best players on the ice last night. And seeing John Cooper behind the bench wearing red was a little weird. I didn't necessarily like John Cooper saying all these nice things about Montreal and the Bell Center. I was like, bro, calm down, bro.
Well, that's John. I mean, we know.
I know.
We know him. We as people who see him every day, we know that Coop does tend to put it on a little bit more frosting to the cake in when he's under a bigger
spotlight,
a bigger market and a bigger spotlight. So that's not too surprising. But
I like that. More frosting on the cake. That's a good one. You should be a writer.
But that wasn't good at all. That wasn't. I was.
I like that. I thought it was very good.
But yeah, I mean, but like, just talking to Coop last week about, I wrote a story about it for the paper on Wednesday, and we talked about this last week. Is, I do think he's a guy who it does mean something to play right there and to play in that environment, and he's not going to get that in Torino. He's not going to get that. I mean, in Milan, he's not going to get that. Hometown playing in front of your home crowd. So to the guys from Canada, that's going to be something that, the guys who just are on this roster in next year in the Olympics, they're not going to get that feeling. So I think that, you do kind of soak it in, just like, Team USA in a couple days when the tournament moves to Boston, that's going to be something, I think they'll cherish, that you don't get that opportunity that much anymore. Maybe you will. Yeah, obviously, with the World Cup of Hockey, the news from yesterday.
What do you make of that, Ed? What do you make of that? Every 2 years, World Cup Olympics.
I like it. I think that I think that again, it's this balance between the NHL schedule and trying to grow the game and having a feel of what international hockey, best on best international hockey means, and that's what it means to the teams, to the players, to the fans. Is every 2 years a cycle kind of like that? Is that too much? Is that, I think, everyone, the proof will be in the pudding when to answer that. But when it comes to it, I kind of like it. Like Victor Hedman's played in 10, international competitions, so, and he's going to run to it every chance he gets, right. Just because he has that pride and he wants to wear that jersey. He wants to represent the Three Crowns. And, So there's guys like that. Now there's other guys who, want to do it because it's best on best, but, aren't necessarily as into it. So I think that's the thing, is how does it get stale over a certain time frame? Cooper always talks about that, being assistant on the North American team in the last World Cup of hockey that had guys like, McDavid, McKinnon, Marner, just like total stud class when they were younger. And, I know there's not going to be a North American team for the 2028, but, over the course of time when these guys are playing in so much of it, I do think there's a generational gap there. Like the Sidney Crosbys, they want to play, in this thing no matter what. The Victor Hedmans, but are the younger players into it as much as maybe we would like to think they are. So I think that proof will be in the pudding of what it means. Or do they like the traditional hanging out with their buddies on the All-Star game weekend and just kind of shooting the shit. So I think the proof will be in the pudding with that. But I like it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it'll be good. It's all up to the players, right? I know what the world's like as far as like what the temperature is on the grand stage and how it's more important than sports, what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. But it's tough to have these competitions and not have Russia involved when you can argue that you have Nikita Kucherov and you have Andrei Vasilevsky and Shesterkin and Sorokin and all these other, and Panarin. You have all these big players that are watching the Four Nations. And I remember being there, and I said it before on today's show, it was really awkward there last year in Toronto during media day, and Leon Draisaitl from Germany and David Pastrnak of Czechia, they were just like, yeah, we don't care. Like, it was just like, F you, F this. Why do we care? Why would we announce this? Why am I being asked about it? It's got to feel kind of crappy, right? It's one thing if you're from a smaller country. For years, Adze Kopitar was from Slovenia. So, I mean, he was really the main hope of them being good, right? So if they weren't involved, I think you kind of get it. But when you're Russia, Czech Republic, Slovakia, right, you're like, man, we got some NHL players, some good NHL players. I think that's something that they need to serve those masters too, because Ed, it's great. The Four Nations is great, but it's weird that McDavid's there, but Draisaitl's not. Marchand's there, but Pasternak's not.
Right.
Pointer's there, but Kucherov's not. Like, there is something missing in this tournament, though.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, and since this is the first time, maybe, hopefully, I haven't seen too much of the details of the World Cup, but, it'll grow to be some of that. But, like there is such an international flavor to the game and so much representation across the board. Even a team that's probably wouldn't win a competition like that, but has so much representation as a team like Switzerland. You have JJ Mo on the Lightning, but there's the Devils have 3 or 4 guys on that team that are including
Roman Yossi.
And as much as it's about the powerhouses, and no doubt, like, politics aside, is a competition better with Russia in it? Yes. And do those players care about that more than playing in an all-star game? Yes. We know that, no doubt. Nikita Kucherov and Andrei Vasilevsky, Mikhail Sergachev would all run to an event like that to be able to represent their country versus, as we know, sometimes doing a skills competition.
Really?
As we've seen. So, but as much as it's about those powerhouse teams, I think it's also about, the teams like Germany and Switzerland and Slovakia, all these teams that are really pushing, as much as we want to make it about 4 countries or 5, whatever it is, the game of hockey has become so good, and these teams play differently. Some of them have more speed games, some of them, grind it out, and I think something like that can really kind of showcase, the powerhouses, but also these up and coming teams. Latvia, some of these teams that are on an international stage are really, factors when you play in world championships and stuff like that. So ideally, I think that's where you want it, and again, the politics aside, having Russia in a tournament that's best on best, we all want that for hockey. I think, I think, not seeing Andrei Vasilevsky, not seeing Nikita Kucherov, not seeing a lot of like you said, the Panarins, the Shesterkins, all these guys who are, amazing players, not participating in it. We all want to see that, but
I would want to see what Russia would do with the goalies.
Yeah,
I mean, Gatsby's going to start, but what do you do with Shesterkin? Is it hang him out there, right? And then Sorokin, who's good, or Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky's like, I have a cup too, It's pretty wild.
Right.
We at this point last week, the Lightning had won 1 of 4 games. They were about to play their second one that night against the Ottawa Senators before the Saturday-Sunday affairs in Detroit and Montreal. This team went from 3-9 in the division, Ed, to now it's like, all right. I mean, that was a huge, huge week for them. Not just that they won, Ed, but that they won in regulation.
Yeah, no, they as important as it was, like we said last week, to get points, it was equally as important to not let the opponent get points, especially with these division games. So they like point wise, finally, it was the best case scenario for them. And, we saw a lot of, one, especially in those back-to-backs, and those back-to-backs are hard because they're road back-to-backs and they're afternoon back-to-backs. And we've seen this team struggle in both of those scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And they were as ready from the jump as we've seen them in a situation like that. And they took those leads. There were obviously some, those were games that kind of were back and forth. They weren't those, there's the way they say they want to win games, 2-1, 3-2. But, I think the big things were, one, you got those leads, you held on to momentum, even when the other team pushed, and, the third period, the lockdown, you even if you allow a goal, don't allow a tying goal, but also too, I think sometimes when we look at this team, they played better than they've deserved, than they've gotten in terms of points,
right.
But it's also been the timing of goals that they've allowed. And, that those 2-1 goal, you're holding on to a 2-1 lead, who scores next, or 1-0 lead. And a lot of times you've seen the other team score, a tying goal. In both of those games on the back-to-back, they were in those similar situations and they scored that next goal. And it was in the second period, maybe early in the third period. And I think that those were important, and those are things where, you build momentum, you build confidence. I think we kind of saw this a little bit last year, kind of the same time. I think it was probably a little bit earlier in the season, and maybe, mid January than early February. But, that's when a team kind of has to kind of find itself. And, we talked to these guys before they went on that back-to-back. And, a lot of the talk was about, it's great that they got a couple points at home, but that's what they're supposed to do. Now it's about, getting these division games on the road. And we know they haven't played specifically well on the road in general, let alone, on back-to-backs or against division opponents. So I think it's the best way that they could have ended going into the break. And, it gives them something coming back when, a lot of these guys are going to come back to practice who aren't in the Four Nations on Wednesday. So gives them something to kind of build on. And, you got to start all the way over again, though, too, because it doesn't, the momentum is hard to carry on after 2 weeks off. So, it's going to be another test when they get back to it.
What did you make of Dylan Duke? And do you think he could possibly make an impact for this team down the stretch?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he's one of those guys who he has a game that fits this team right now in terms of what they need. And that's a guy who can skate. He can get in some of those grimy areas, battle for pucks, and find his way towards the net. During training camp, a lot of people, said there was a little bit of Tyler Johnson in him. One of those guys who, you saw the goal, to start it out with him battling for a puck, winning a puck battle against the boards, off the far boards. And, he's just kind of is the guy in the right spot at the right time on a rebound and puts it in. So we've seen that from him. We saw it in training camp. We saw it in the preseason. Obviously he's in his first full pro season. So you want him to get in there and build his game in the AHL. But it's funny that he's the guy on the team, and Connor Geeky isn't, the guy who made the team out of camp. But, a lot of those guys went down to Syracuse to get some more games under their belt, which is always good. But, I just think Duke right now has a game that really fits in that, middle to bottom six role. And the big thing that's bottom six needed scoring. And if he's a guy that can show he can do that, I think, we've seen Gage Concalves do it. And even though he's been playing up and down the lines since he came back from Syracuse, and sometimes that's just what you need. You need a guy to go back down there, be told, hey, this is what we need you to work on. And when you come back, this is what we need you to bring. And, I think Concalves has brought that since he came back. And I think, in the brief stretch that we see in Dylan Duke, he's been able to bring what they need. And that's really what they need right now is, you need that depth scoring and, and not just scoring, but just creating those opportunities. And We saw Gergensons finally get that goal in Montreal, which, getting I'm surprised he can do the old Corey Perry and bring the monkey
Yeah.
back after that one. But he's another guy who's, veteran, more of a veteran guy, but obviously he's created a lot of chances for himself, but, either just couldn't find the back of the net or just kind of struggled around the front of the net. So everything's kind of trending upward in terms of, finding those kind of guys. And this is also what Julian needs to see, because he's got like we talked last week, this is such an important time where, you're really kind of gauging what are the guys who can help you internally, and how does that affect what you need externally. So I expect, those evaluations that are being made right now to really kind of hinge on what we've seen the past, few weeks, and in terms of what they're really going to go shopping for before, March 7th.
Yeah, it's going to be funny because Julian's going to have to be so in depth of everything, and then boom, here we go. We got to turn the page, man. We got the trade deadline's right around the corner. You got to get back to trying to make this team better. Before I let you go, let us know about the stories you got up on TampaBay.com/sports in the Tampa Bay Times, my friend.
Yeah, I had a little bit of light week, but the story on Brandon Hagel's still up there, and just kind of his path here. I think we talked about a little bit, last week in terms of, him being a guy who, who knows if he joins a team like the Lightning from the beginning, maybe he doesn't have that opportunity, but
right.
Everything kind of worked out for him, even though he was a guy who really had the battle to find his opportunity. He gets a chance in Chicago, and then, gets that opportunity to show that he can be a goal scorer and be, one of those guys. And then he comes to the Lightning and is surrounded by this room that's won back-to-back Stanley Cups, and how that helped his growth. Obviously, playing with Anthony Cirelli has helped him and helped Cirelli kind of find their ways of their all-around games. And then, John Cooper, like I said, just what it's meant to him, in terms of, he was saying that, he remembers where he was when he was asked to be the coach for the 2022 Olympics. And he was at his, on Anna Maria Island, out in his house, and how happy he was to hear that. And then sitting behind his desk in Amalie Arena when he was told that the NHL wasn't going to go to the Beijing games, and kind of thinking, are you going to get that chance again? Are you going to have, are you going to be relevant and, down the road? And obviously he has been, and I think he's seen as almost kind of the guy of Team Canada now in terms of coaching, and, but also how he's still going to this kind of event, trying to, that it's different, like coaches in this game. And I think Coop is actually one of these guys who loves to talk to other coaches and try to help them and feel them out and everything like that. But for a lot of them, it is a kind of a cloak and dagger thing, is, you keep a lot of stuff to yourself, you keep it under the vest. But how much he was looking forward to going to this thing and learning from some of his coaches, from Pierre DeBoer, from, Cassidy, Rick Tocchet, who he's got a big history with. I mean, one great thing is he talks about the 87 Canada Cup and how much,
right.
He remembers that as the best hockey he's ever seen played. Now all of a sudden, he's best buddies with Wayne Gretzky because they're neighbors together in Coeur d'Alene. Right. And Rick Tocchet, who was also on that team, is a good friend and one of his, assistant coaches on Team Canada. So it's funny how John Cooper, the guy who really never played hockey at a high level, was a lawyer for several years, and now here he is, like, living this dream out that, he thought might have slipped away from him a couple of years ago. So you got that going for him too. So just a couple stories that, spent a little bit of time on and worked on there at TampaBay.com. Now, and again, we'll follow the Four Nations, especially next week, as we kind of get to the nitty gritty of what teams are going to get to the championship and stuff like that. So, that's what we got.
Make sure you subscribe to my friends over at the Tampa Bay Times. Obviously with all the Ed stuff, Mark Topkin now down at Port Charlotte for spring training. A lot of great stuff there. So again, TampaBay.com/sports. Subscribe to the Tampa Bay Times, man. We want to support local. That is so freaking important. And we're mentioning that the other day. We're going through all the local, whether it's papers or online podcasts, like everything. We got to support our people here in the Tampa Bay area. Ed, I appreciate your time, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you next week. It's been the longest we spent apart from each other in months, my friend.
I know.
Tell your better half I said hello, Shannon. Make sure she keeps you in line. All right. No misbehaving you.
I've been home a lot. Yeah. So
she's like, can hockey come back already? Get this guy the hell out of here.
get him out of here.
Yeah. Appreciate you, brother. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you later.
You got it, pal. TampaBay.com/sports. Tampa Bay Times. Go subscribe today. Help them out. Help them out, please. Every little bit helps Eddie in the Yard on Twitter/X. A big thank you to everybody involved today, including Eddie Encina. I mean, how great was Sofia Chepenik from the USF Women's Lacrosse team? Incredible. Spencer Nunez, head coach of the Jefferson Dragons baseball team. And, of course, our guy David Zimroth, the coach, Coach Z, breaking down USF and Memphis. I will be in the building tonight at the Yingling Center, so make sure you come on by and say hello if you're there. Follow me on all social media platforms at Recher. If you see any of the videos that I post, please share them. Every single share, every single subscription certainly helps. For those that don't remember, I am off tomorrow. Got some personal things I got to take care of. Everything's fine. I've just got some things that I got to take care of, so I won't be on tomorrow. Back on Monday. We're hoping to have a couple of big guests next week when it comes to the Tampa Bay Lightning, so you do not want to miss that. All right, it's going to wrap it up for me. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. No show tomorrow. I'll be back on Monday at noon right here on the Recher Podcast. I am gone.